The silent summons, the maintenance bay hummed with the quiet efficiency of alien technology as Marcus wiped lubricant from his hands. 3 years working in the Kepler research facility had taught him to appreciate the late-night shifts. Fewer questions, less scrutiny, and blessed silence from the constant hum of interspecies politics that plagued the day workers. The soft chime of his communication device cut through the mechanical whispers. A priority summons, coded in the blue-white script of the Valdorian administration. Marcus frowned at the message's brevity. Level 7, immediately. Z-Day, Zara Ashkor. Even among humans, her name was spoken in hushed tones. The Valdorian scientist had arrived 6 months ago, bringing with her a reputation for brilliant research and absolute emotional detachment. Unlike other alien staff who maintained polite working relationships with their human counterparts, Zara communicated only when necessary, her violet eyes seeming to catalog every human interaction as data for some unseen experiment. Marcus had encountered her exactly 3 times in 6 months. Each meeting had lasted precisely as long as required for her to issue technical specifications for equipment maintenance. She never acknowledged his presence beyond those interactions, never showed curiosity about human customs like others of her kind. The summons felt wrong. Why would she need a maintenance worker at this hour? The journey to level 7 required clearance Marcus didn't possess, but his access card worked anyway. Someone had authorized his passage. The corridors grew progressively more secure as he ascended, transitioning from the utilitarian gray of maintenance areas to the pristine crystalline walls of the research levels. Zara waited at the entrance to Section C, her tall, willowy frame silhouetted against the bioluminescent panels. Her usual laboratory attire had been replaced with something more formal, dark robes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Without a word, she turned and began walking deeper into the facility. Marcus followed, his footsteps echoing awkwardly in the silence while hers made no sound at all. The familiar sensation of being studied crept up his spine, though Zara never once looked back. They passed through 3 more security checkpoints, each opening seamlessly at their approach. Finally, she stopped before a door Marcus had never seen, seamless black material that seemed to drink in surrounding light. Zara placed her palm against its surface and it dissolved like smoke. She stepped inside, then turned to face him directly for the first time. "Enter," she said, her voice carrying an unusual weight. Quickly, Marcus hesitated at the threshold, every instinct warning him that crossing it would change everything. But something in her expression, a crack in that perfect composure, compelled him forward. The moment he stepped inside, the door reformed behind them with a sound like breaking glass. They were alone and he was trapped. The forbidden truth. The room defied everything Marcus knew about Valdorian architecture. Where their public spaces gleamed with crystalline perfection, this chamber felt organic. Walls that pulsed with a faint heartbeat rhythm, surfaces that seemed to breathe. Bioluminescent veins traced intricate patterns across the ceiling, casting everything in an amber twilight that made shadows dance at the edges of his vision. Zara moved to the room's center, her composure finally cracking. Her hands trembled as she activated a series of controls Marcus couldn't identify. The walls responded, their pulse quickening until the entire space thrummed with energy. "This room exists outside their network," she said, her voice barely above, a whisper. "The only place on this station where thoughts cannot be monitored, where words cannot be recorded." She turned to face him, and Marcus saw something he'd never expected in those violet eyes. Fear. "What I'm about to share will burden you with knowledge that could destroy us both." Before Marcus could respond, Zara pressed her palm against his forehead. The contact sent electricity racing through his nervous system, and suddenly his mind was no longer his own. Images flooded his consciousness, not seen but experienced, as if he lived each moment himself. Council chambers filled with beings whose beauty masked ancient cruelty. Documents written in flowing script that detailed humanity's inefficiencies and resource consumption. Maps marking human settlements with red symbols that meant only one thing: elimination. Project Cleansing. The name burned itself into his awareness alongside its horrifying scope. Every human colony, every research station, every diplomatic outpost, all marked for simultaneous destruction in 27 days. The genocide would be swift, clinical, presented to the galaxy as a necessary quarantine measure after a fabricated plague outbreak. The telepathic connection severed abruptly, leaving Marcus gasping. His legs gave out, and he collapsed against the nearest wall, his mind reeling from the alien method of communication and the devastating knowledge it had delivered. 12 billion humans across 47 worlds, Zara said, her voice hollow. Gone in a single coordinated strike. The High Council believes your species has outlived its usefulness as a labor force. They've found more efficient alternatives. Marcus struggled to form words through the nauseating aftermath of telepathic contact. Why are you telling me this? Why risk? Because some of us remember what we once were before we became conquerors, Zara interrupted. My people weren't always the dominant species in this sector. We know what extinction feels like. We barely escaped it ourselves 3,000 years ago. She knelt beside him, her expression intense. And because you, Marcus Chen of Maintenance Level 3, are about to become humanity's only hope for survival. The weight of impossible responsibility settled on his shoulders like a physical force. 27 days to save 12 billion lives, armed with nothing but forbidden knowledge and the help of a single alien scientist whose motivations he barely understood. In that strange living room, Marcus realized his old life had just ended forever. An unlikely alliance. The next hour passed in a blur of desperate strategizing. Zara had prepared for this moment longer than Marcus realized. Hidden compartments revealed detailed schematics of communication networks, personnel files, and most. Crucially, a list of names written in multiple languages and scripts. Not all Valdorians support the Council's decision, she explained, spreading holographic displays across the room's curved surfaces. The genocide faction calls itself the Purist Assembly, but they represent perhaps 60% of our leadership. Enough to authorize the action, but not enough to prevent resistance. Marcus studied the floating documents, his mind still adjusting to the scope of conspiracy surrounding them. These other names, their sympathizers, rebels, more accurately. Dr. Thyros from the medical division has been documenting human, psychological complexity, proving your species possesses cognitive capabilities the Council refuses to acknowledge. Commander Jorvik controls 3 patrol fleets and has already begun subtle repositioning to limit civilian casualties. They know what's coming, but they've been waiting for the right moment to act. Zara manipulated the displays, revealing communication, logs, and covert meeting schedules. The challenge isn't finding allies. It's coordinating resistance across 47 worlds without triggering early activation of Project Cleansing. If the Purist Assembly suspects organized opposition, they'll accelerate the timeline. Marcus felt overwhelmed by the complexity. I'm a maintenance worker, Zara. I fix atmospheric recyclers and calibrate gravity generators. How am I supposed to coordinate an interstellar rebellion? Because you're invisible, she replied, her intensity surprising him. Humans in service positions have access to every level of Valdorian facilities. You maintain our life support, repair our technology, clean our spaces, and we barely notice you exist. That blindness has created the perfect intelligence network. If someone could activate it, the implications slowly dawned on him. Every human janitor, technician, and service worker was potentially a spy with unlimited access to alien infrastructure. The very system designed to keep humanity subservient had inadvertently created opportunities for sabotage. The maintenance staff communicate across facilities, Marcus said, excitement building despite the terror of their situation. Weekly technical reports, shared databases for parts requisition, emergency protocols that require interstation coordination. Exactly. Hidden within routine communications, resistance messages could reach every human settlement simultaneously. Zara's fingers flew across control surfaces, bringing up personnel directories. But it requires someone the maintenance community trusts, someone with the technical knowledge to embed coded instructions in standard procedural updates. Marcus stared at his own file floating among hundreds of others. 3 years of exemplary service records, commendations for solving complex system failures, and most importantly, widespread respect among human workers who often sought his advice on difficult repairs. "We'll need to move carefully," he said, accepting the impossible role thrust upon him. "Start with trusted contacts, build cells of 5 or 6 people maximum. Each group only knows their immediate connections. If someone's captured, they can't compromise the entire network." Zara nodded approvingly. "I'll provide intelligence on Valdorian movements and identify safe communication windows. Dr. Thyros can supply medical supplies disguised as routine health inspections. Commander Jorvek will ensure strategic facilities remain operational during the critical phase." They spent the remaining time crafting initial contact protocols and establishing emergency procedures. As dawn approached through the station's artificial day cycle, Marcus felt the weight of 12 billion lives settling permanently across his shoulders. When the door finally dissolved to release him, he was no longer just a maintenance worker. He was humanity's secret general in a war most of his species didn't even know was coming. The underground network 2 weeks into their covert operation, Marcus had transformed from an invisible maintenance worker into the nerve center of an impossibly complex conspiracy. His small quarters now served as mission control after hours, walls lined with hidden data crystals containing encrypted communications from 37 different facilities. The network was growing faster than either he or Zara had anticipated. Maintenance supervisor Rita Valdez on mining station Kepler 7 had recruited her entire night shift. Engineer Thomas Wright at the agricultural colonies reported 18 volunteers ready for coordinated action. Even the domestic staff at the diplomatic embassy on Proxima had formed resistance cells, using their access to high-security areas to gather intelligence on purist assembly movements. "The beauty of it," Marcus explained during one of his midnight meetings with Zara, "is that we're using their own efficiency against them. Every repair request, every supply order, every routine diagnostic check carries coded messages. They've trained us to be thorough and invisible, perfect qualities for insurgents." Zara monitored their communications through modified equipment she'd smuggled from her laboratory. Dr. Thyros reports unusual medical supply requisitions from purist facilities. They're stockpiling neurological suppressants, likely for use during the cleansing operations to prevent panic. Commander Jorvek has identified 17 key installations that control sector-wide communications. If we can coordinate simultaneous strikes, their planning was interrupted by Marcus's communicator chirping an emergency code. He accepted the transmission, and the face of David Park, head of environmental systems on Research Station Tau 9, appeared in holographic projection. "Marcus, we've got a problem," David whispered, his image flickering with transmission interference. "Security swept through engineering this morning. They arrested 3 of our people, claimed they found suspicious modifications to the ventilation system monitoring equipment." Marcus felt his blood turn cold. Those modifications were part of their communication network, hidden within routine system upgrades. "Are they talking?" "Not yet, but Lieutenant Vex is conducting the interrogations personally. You know his reputation." Everyone knew Vex, a Valdorian security officer whose methods made even other aliens uncomfortable. If he suspected organized resistance, the torture would continue until he extracted every detail. Zara was already working at her control surfaces, pulling up security footage and personnel files. "We have perhaps 6 hours before Vex breaks them," she said grimly. "After that, he'll trace the modifications back to their source patterns. The entire network could be exposed." Marcus stared at the tactical displays, his mind racing through possibilities. They could abandon the compromised cells, but that meant leaving loyal humans to face execution. They could accelerate their timeline, but they weren't ready for coordinated action across 47 worlds. Or, "We give Vex what he wants," Marcus said suddenly. "Not the real network. A false one. Something big enough to satisfy his suspicions, but small enough to seem manageable." Zara's violet eyes widened with understanding. "A sacrifice operation. We expose a fictional conspiracy, complete with fake leadership and fabricated plans. He tortures our people, They break and reveal. The decoy network. It means losing good people, Marcus admitted, the weight of command settling heavier on his shoulders. But if we choose volunteers who understand the stakes. David's voice crackled through the communication link. Marcus, whatever you're planning, count me in. Half my team volunteered to be the sacrificial decoys if it keeps the real operation secret. As they refined their desperate gambit, Marcus realized how much he'd changed in just 2 weeks. The maintenance worker who once worried about keeping atmospheric processors running was now calculating acceptable losses in lives and infrastructure. The approaching genocide had forced him to become someone he barely recognized, someone capable of the terrible mathematics of rebellion. With 13 days remaining until Project Cleansing, humanity's underground war was about to claim its first casualties. The point of no return. The sacrificial gambit had worked better than Marcus dared hope. Lieutenant Vex, convinced he'd uncovered a small human sabotage ring, executed David Park and 6 volunteers in a public display meant to discourage further resistance. What Vex didn't realize was that their confessions under torture had revealed only carefully crafted disinformation, protecting the real network while making the purist assembly believe they'd neutralized the threat. Now, with 3 days remaining until Project Cleansing, Marcus stood in Zara's hidden chamber for what might be their final meeting. The walls pulsed more urgently than before, as if the room itself sensed the approaching catastrophe. Commander Jorvex, fleets are in position, Zara reported, her usual composure cracking under the strain. Dr. Thyros has distributed medical countermeasures to 43 worlds. Your maintenance network has successfully compromised life support systems in every major Valdorian facility. She paused, her violet eyes meeting his. But the window for our operation is closing. The purist assembly has moved the cleansing timeline forward by 18 hours. Marcus felt the familiar weight of impossible responsibility. Tomorrow at dawn, across 47 worlds, Valdorian forces would begin the systematic execution of 12 billion humans. Their only chance was a coordinated strike so precise, so perfectly timed, that it would cripple the genocide before it could begin. The beauty of their plan is also its weakness, he said, studying the tactical displays one final time. They're relying on simultaneous activation across all systems. If we can create enough chaos in the first 30 minutes, atmospheric failures, communication blackouts, gravity fluctuations, their coordination will collapse. Zara activated a new set of controls, and the room filled with real-time status reports from resistance cells across the galaxy. Green indicators showed networks ready for action. Yellow marked cells with compromised but functional capabilities. Red signaled the 17 facilities where their people had been captured or killed. 12 hours from now, Marcus continued, every human maintenance worker, janitor, and service technician will simultaneously trigger system failures designed to look like random malfunctions. In the confusion, Commander Jorvek's loyal fleets will move against Purist Assembly Command ships. Dr. Thyros will release aerosol neurological disruptors to incapacitate Valdorian personnel in critical areas. And if we fail? Zara asked quietly. Marcus had been avoiding that possibility, but now faced it directly. If we fail, humanity dies tomorrow, and every alien who helped us faces execution for treason. There's no middle ground anymore. They stood in silence, feeling the weight of species-level survival resting on their decisions. Finally, Zara moved to a wall panel Marcus had never seen her access before. Her palm print activated a hidden compartment containing a small crystalline device. This is a quantum communicator, she explained. It will allow you to coordinate the operation in real time across all 47 worlds, but using it will expose both of us to immediate detection. The moment you activate it, every Valdorian authority will know our location. Marcus accepted the device, feeling its strange warmth against his palm. Then we'd better make sure the first transmission counts. As he prepared to leave the chamber, for the last time, Zara caught his arm. Marcus, in my species' history, we have a concept called kaveth, the moment when survival requires complete trust between former enemies. I believe humans call it leap of faith. He nodded, understanding more than her translation conveyed. Tomorrow, The maintenance worker and the alien scientist would either save two civilizations or watch them burn together. Marcus stepped through the dissolving door, the quantum communicator hidden beneath his work clothes, carrying the hopes and fears of 12 billion souls toward humanity's darkest dawn. The rebellion's final hour had begun,